Here we go. Bro Saw God, episode 8. Happy to be here today. How are you doing, man?
Good.
Yeah?
How are you?
I'm good. Last time we ended, you were doing a 3-day fast. So I'm excited to hear about that. But before we start, maybe we should do a little prayer.
Absolutely.
Invite God into the room with us.
Would you like to start or you want me to start?
I think you can take this one.
Alrighty. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for being with us today. Thank you for allowing us to do this podcast to share your word. Allow yourself to talk through us, give us your Holy Spirit, and allow us to touch the people on the other side of this and bring them closer to you. In Jesus' holy name, thank you. Amen.
Amen. No, we're going, dude. Hey, man, that's real life. When you say a prayer, sometimes the words go like,
So, do you know what amen actually means?
No, let's talk about it.
So be it.
Okay, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Well, so be it.
So be it.
I love the whole thing. I've been getting into the breath, right?
Yeah.
Yahweh.
Yep.
How it's like the inhale. Yeah.
All will speak his name.
So cool.
So let's talk 3-day fast. So why did I do it? I think I mentioned last time I did it because I felt called to it. And I feel like when you feel a desire to do something that's within the will of God, you should listen because you're going to learn something from it. And so going into it, I was really excited. I was really, looking forward to the insights and things. And then, so day 1 comes, totally fine. I've done a 1-day fast before.
Yep.
Day 2 came and I got frustrated. I was like, I should probably get something out of this at this point. I'm walking around, my stomach's growling. It hurts.
So you were sitting there with an expectation of something profound happening.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm waiting for some kind of prophetic vision or something that'll help me or give me some answers that I'm looking for. And I'm not getting it. So I'm leaning into the word now. And then I'm realizing that, okay, there's something I haven't been doing a lot, and that's been meditation. So I'm so hungry. It hurts. I can't think. My head hurts. I decided to lay down and I meditate.
And this is day 2?
This is day 2.
Okay.
I decided to do a little bit of meditation, and it basically allowed me to separate myself from what I was feeling and just go to the peace of God. And so I used that as a tool to basically get through day 2. And then I woke up on day 3 and I felt very different, from the morning. I woke up, I washed my face and I looked in the mirror and I was like, whoa, I feel like I even look different. And so the way that what was coming to me was restoration, renewal. And so I was feeling like I was renewed. And then, so I went into the word, I kept reading, and then I meditated, and then all of a sudden it hit me. There was a bunch of different things that hit me at once, and I felt like I had a major realization. So the biggest one was I've been, digging into this concept of belief and the pray, believe, receive thing. And so when you have a desire on your heart, it may not just be there because you have it. It may be there because God placed it in you. And so in order to try to understand it better, I wanted to learn about belief in this 3-day fast. So for me, what I took out of it is confidence. You need to be confident in the word you speak. You need to embody the desire, and then and thank the Lord. That's the key, because in the past I've been able to use what I would call the laws of the universe and be blessed in certain ways, but the missing link that I had was I wasn't thanking God for doing these things in my life. And ultimately, we don't deserve any of the glory. It's his.
Right.
And so acknowledging him and his presence and his creation and not putting yourself or being prideful is going to be the missing link that I was missing.
Did you put that into play? And have you seen anything out of it?
So far, I have been remaining patient, because I think that that's the biggest thing God wants to teach me right now is patience.
Sure.
And so I'm not looking for anything specific to come out of, of course there are things that I would want,
sure,
but I'm just really honing in on patience. But there was an overwhelming sense of childlike joy that hit me once I hit these realizations, oh my God, you just found the answer. It's like when you're a little kid and you discover, your parents were hiding some candy and you find it. I felt that way for the first time in a long time. And that's when I knew I was this is from God. Like
Yeah.
this answer is from God. It's not from anywhere else. Like it just makes sense. And then, so that segued me into this idea of enjoying creation and like being joyful and like enjoying every experience. And like I started to realize like how much I wasn't really enjoying all the things that he gave me, because I didn't see it as him giving it to me because I didn't pray on it. But like all the other stuff, you know, like the simple things, like then the big one was the word.
But we know everything you got in life has been from God.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
do recognize that. Okay.
That's the big realization, because I was struggling with, I think it's ingratitude, like where you're not grateful for everything. And so I was trying to do that thing where at night, like you sit down and you think of like 3 things that you're grateful for from the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was being dishonest when I was doing it. And so I was like, maybe that's something I can like learn through this experience of like, what does real gratitude feel? How do I like tap into the real feeling of gratitude? And I felt like I did get it there. And it was through just like,
oh man, I can't wait for later today.
Yeah,
You're gonna learn what real gratitude feels like.
I'm looking forward to it.
We can talk about that on the next episode.
Sure. The other thing was that the word is the most powerful thing. Like Jesus said, it's like a double-edged sword. And so like things you speak, the examples that were coming to me were like, oh man, like you mess up and you're like, I'm stupid, or like all these things. It's like
self-doubt,
self-fulfilling
criticism.
prophecy.
Yeah.
Like you are affirming things that you don't want, whether conscious or unconscious. And if that's your unconscious reaction, you need to reprogram yourself. God gave us this subconscious mind that is programmable through repetition, through what you consume, like we've talked about in previous things. And then the big one that I got, which I think is relevant for everybody, is ask God more for things. Like, don't be afraid to ask God. Like, he's the gift giver. Like, he wants to, not to be like all like prosperity gospel-ish or whatever and act like we're just here to beg him for things, but like ask him to be with you in certain situations, ask him to be present, ask him, for outcomes and things that you want. Don't feel ashamed that you want something else that isn't present currently. But if you really believe it's something that can be done, it's not, even if it's unrealistic, test,
Well, he wants to give you these things. That's the
Right.
other thing we have to remember. It's like, and that's why it tells us in the Bible to keep asking, asking. Don't stop asking. Don't stop praying. Keep asking for it. There's a time where that whatever you're praying for will come to fruition. It's like we've talked about a million times on this podcast. Like, it's not always going to be on your, most of the time it's not going to be on your time. Like, it'll be when you're ready in whatever way that you need to be ready, that God sees. He sees everything. He sees the future, past, present. And so he knows at which point, like, this is going to be a gift that is going to basically multiply and go out into the world. Not only are you getting a gift, but that gift that you get is going to impact other people. And I think that's the type of thing that we have to kind of get to before we get those gifts that we're hoping for.
I think people don't understand how good of a planner God is. Like, I was just reading Isaiah before I came in here, and it was talking about how it was kind of like a funny way of putting it, but it was like, who goes to God and gives him advice? Like, it was just given like examples of like, he's the one where it comes from. Like,
who are you?
Who are you to like ever think that, and it was talking about the idolization and like all these little things that we create and we put up there, which I think that we got to be very careful with things like AI. I think that AI is very quickly becoming an idolizable thing. It's becoming these casted things that we're worshiping.
I got some things I want to talk about. That's part of that whole situation too.
But the big thing is talk to God more, believe in what you're asking for, that he gave it to you, and thank him for it.
And this is what you realize during the fast,
yes.
right?
Yeah. So like all of the and we'll do more on this, I think, later on. So we'll touch on this in another episode. But all that manifestation stuff is just delving into how God works. And like, you have to understand it's coming from him. You're not creating anything. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, yes, God is within us, but it's not us. It's him.
Yeah.
He's doing those things. So be grateful for what he does for you, and be grateful for how things turn out, realistically.
100%.
You want to talk about, you were at the Brandon Lake concert?
Yeah. We went to the Brandon Lake concert last Friday.
That was so cool.
It was amazing. I've never been to a concert like that. And like I said in the prior episode, like I was super excited for Hunter because this is his first concert. And I felt like this was a good introduction to go into like a live music event. It was late. So we got there at for him, it was late. We got there at 6. We putzed around, tried to get gear, but the line was or merch because the line was just too long. We're like, no, we're going to buy it online. We're not gonna stand in this line. And then it went until 10:30. Brandon had one opener, Benjamin William Hastings. He was wonderful as well. And then another gentleman whose name is escaping me right now, who did some really cool music as well. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful concert. I want to share a little piece of it actually here.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that really resonated with me was okay, there were 10,000 people. This place was sold out. Not the biggest venue in Chicago, but it's a pretty big venue. 10,000 people
For worship?
worshiping the Lord. Oh my gosh, it was so powerful.
Where two or more gathered in my name, I am there with them.
It was amazing, and they had these little things in between. And let me show you this real quick, and then I'll talk about it a little bit more. But check this out. Let's see if we can get this to play with sound. Chills just looking at this one. So many people worshiping God. It was really kind of a little bit of a life-changing experience for me. I've never been around a big group of people where you're worshiping God. You've got your hands up. My church doesn't do that. We don't raise our hands and praise God.
That Baptist church I went to, they did.
I was kind of yearning for something like that, and this was really, really beautiful for me. I teared up a few times. And the other thing that they did throughout the concert was they introduced different organizations that are out there helping people. So there was one called World Vision that's a beautiful organization. 99% of what they take in donations goes to these kids who are in different areas of the world who need to be sponsored to have a chance at a life because they have nothing. They have no parents. They left them, whatever it might be. There's stories and stories. But so the guy who was emceeing the whole thing, he actually has adopted 2 or 3 kids from that World Vision. Brandon himself sponsors 3 kids, one for each of his own kids. It's a monthly donation. I really encourage people, if you're wanting to do something good, it's a great organization that you should look up. So that was really nice, and it was nice to see all the people banding together. I don't know exact number, but I think we were trying to get 1,000 kids sponsored in this place with 10,000 people. Awesome. And I think we got close if we didn't do it completely, but really, really cool experience. Hunter was really tired at the end, but he did it. We all did it. We loved it. Paige loved it. So it was really fun. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. What else is new? Trying to think. Our poor girl Sky, we're going through a little bit of a tribulation with her right now. She had that surgery. It was actually a year ago now. I was just looking it up. So it was last October, 2023. She didn't have surgery. I'm sorry. She had radiation. So she's got that tumor that's growing in her brain that is pressing against her optic nerve, which is causing her to be blind. And after radiation, we did, I think, 4 weeks of it every day. She was doing great. And she got her vision back to a degree so she could navigate and see us. And I think she could see big figures and stuff, which was, it was great. This past week and a half, her vision has gotten quite worse. She can't see. She's bumping into things that she never did before. So obviously we're putting up guardrails and things like that to make sure that she is safe around the house. But other than that, I still feel blessed. This is the one thing that I'm trying to teach myself because I'm sad, of course.
Right.
I want her to be able to see. I want her to be able to see us. So it certainly impacts us. But at the same time, I'm trying to turn it around in my head. I just shared that movie Sight with you. which is a beautiful movie on Angel Network. I encourage people to watch it. But finding the miracle, I'm still praying for a miracle for her. I still do every day. I'm like, I really would love for her, like, just for herself, like for her own benefit to be able to see us. Like, I want that miracle. So I'm still going to pray for it. But I also am comfortable that if it is not within God's will, the miracle is that she's healthy. Like, she's a healthy dog. She's doing great. She's happy. She might need a little more assistance now because she can't see, but she brings us so much joy. Like,
she's great.
I can't be mad at anything with that. So yeah, so that's been on my mind, weighing on me a little bit, but that's life.
Yeah.
You go through things. So
I will say, so like one of the things, and I hate when people say the term false hope. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they said false hope. Like, don't set yourself up for false hope. But Jesus did explicitly say that we should believe in what we ask him to do for us. And what does that look like? And what does that feel like? I think it's you embody the feeling of what it's like to receive that gift from God. How would you feel in that moment? And like, how would you feel in that moment when she's freed from that?
Yeah.
Like, embody that within your body, meditate on it, relax your body so that you can almost become in like a dreamlike state, and then just picture it in your head, picture the moment, the celebration and everything that comes with it, and just like how beautiful it is, and do that.
It's a pretty cool experience when you do this, because I've done this in the past with other things, but I am doing it also when I pray for her. And you can like we talked about in that prior episode where I get the like shivers and like the goosebumps all over my body. Man, does that like kick up when I'm like experiencing and trying to feel that feeling of like, you can compare it, like pretend you won the lottery. How would you feel? Like, can you bring up that joy inside your body? And that's the kind of thing that you're trying, that joy that like, I don't know, it's such a hard thing to explain, but it like feels like it's like right here in my heart that I'm like, yes, thank you, Lord. And I always thank him. I'm like, I know she hasn't, it's not there yet, but I know that you can, and I know that you will, because you say that you will in the Bible. And that's, you always,
it is done.
It is done. It is done.
That's the key.
Yeah. The other thing to get into what I really want to talk about today, which is going to
natural segue.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun one. So I started watching season 2 of Ancient Apocalypse. Have you seen it?
Not 2, but I started.
You started one?
Yeah,
good.
It's good.
I'm glad. Okay,
it's good. I was actually halfway through it the last time I watched it.
Oh,
and,
so you just like fell off the cliff and
yeah,
forgot about it.
I forgot because I'm weird and I don't like stuff sometimes.
All right, so do you like the show? Or?
I'm into it. Like, okay. I didn't want to turn it off last night. I was watching it, and then I was like, I got to meditate and sleep. Like, I got to do my stuff. But I was like, maybe one more.
That's good discipline. Good for you.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Ancient Apocalypse, haven't heard of it, haven't seen it, a gentleman called Graham Hancock created the show. And this is a guy who's I think he's a sociologist, and he's a journalist, and he has, he's got like hundreds and hundreds of books, I think, at this point in his life that he's written on various topics. One of them was actually the Ark of the Covenant, which is supposedly in Ethiopia right now.
Interesting. Oh, I've heard this.
Behind locked doors. They won't let anyone that...
The Ethiopian church says that they have it. Yeah.
And there's some history there that they may have it, because there's a Jesuit kind of history that in that area. And apparently the people that guard the Ark of the Covenant, no one can see it. Even Graham Hancock, he's been outside the door, but he hasn't been allowed to go in. Every single person, I think there's 3 that have been there that have been the guards. They end up getting like cataracts. Like, there's something going on with it. It's an interesting story.
Think about how in the Old Testament what happened whenever Israel was taken over and they took the Ark.
Yep.
Like, everything that happened to those people, or they mishandled the Ark because they didn't follow the instructions, and like people died, you know? Like, so it's interesting. I always think it's super interesting, that story about the Ark and how it's like it's holding those tablets. It's like, why is that? Why is the stone? Oh, I guess God wrote on it with his finger, according to the story of Moses. So I don't know.
It's an amazing. I just think it's so interesting. I think our history is so interesting, and what I like about Graham is that he's got these ideas that challenge the status quo, and I think that we don't like the mainstream idea of what we think history looks like for human species. I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's presenting these stories and this archaeological evidence that is pointing us in a direction that is more towards what the truth is of the human species. And so just to give people a little bit of background, like the mainstream idea of human history is that Homo sapiens evolved into like Homo sapiens. We evolved into Homo sapiens about 300,000 years ago in Africa.
Right.
And from that point on, it wasn't until about, what did they say? 10 to 12,000 years ago that we started to become more, like we started to have more complex societies, be able to build structures, be able to create tools and things like that. So that's a long period of time of just like no progress. So that right there is like, okay,
illogical.
All right. Doesn't make sense.
It's an illogical theory. You think that just because of time we got smarter?
Yeah.
No, we've always been smart.
I feel like there's pieces of things that like there is some evolution to something, but there's more to it that we don't understand yet. So they're saying over several thousand years, at around 12,000 years ago, people started to create these urban centers, writing systems, and like monumental architecture gradually started to occur. And so what Graham Hancock is saying is, no, I believe that there is an ancient advanced civilization of humans that we don't recognize today, that existed for who knows how long. Mm-hmm. They were wiped out, and then we lost all of the information and the stuff, and then we kind of started over again, right? And so this whole theory predicates on this Younger Dryas period of time in history, which was about 11,600 to 12,900 years ago. And so during that Younger Dryas period, the thought is that there was this cataclysmic event, whether it was like a comet coming in or multiple comets coming in and hitting the world, not the United States, the world, or volcanic activity or whatever it was. Something happened during that time period between that 12,900 and 11,600 years ago that caused a major change in the climate here on the Earth and caused some kind of cataclysmic event. We don't know what it is, but we know something happened because we see they're called megafauna. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. I'm going to show it on the screen here for people. There's this animal species that we know existed and we know went extinct about, what did they say? I think about like around the same time of the Younger Dryas period.
Yeah.
And so I guess the mainstream idea is that, and look at the size comparison here. The mainstream idea is that this little human made them extinct.
Yeah.
There was no cataclysmic event.
Right.
So we had, from what the historians now want to say, is we were hunter-gatherers. We had small communities. Hunter-gatherers didn't have like advancements. They didn't work together as much. And so you're telling me that a group of these hunter-gatherers took down a plethora of these like huge megafauna animals, giant
like the size
sloths,
of a building,
mammoths. Like, come on,
yeah,
it doesn't make sense. So these things, like as I was watching this show, are like coming into my head. I'm like, whoa, this is like really interesting, and how this like, and I'm going to tie it back to the Bible because obviously this is a Christian show, but this is really interesting. I think everyone should want to know about our history, right? So anyway, so there's this megafauna extinction, and what's really cool is in one of the episodes, he goes into, I'm pulling it up here just so people can see. He goes into some this cool place in New Mexico called White Sands. White Sands is a national park in New Mexico.
Wow.
And it's so beautiful. I mean, just like look at these pictures. Like it's just a bunch of like dunes.
There's a lot I don't know about.
Yeah, there's a bunch of dunes
crazy.
And like it's been there for a long time. I would love to go see this in person. I've never even heard of this place, to be honest.
Let's go next weekend.
Dude, look at this. Like, look how cool it would be to just like sit there and look at the stars.
Yeah, can you imagine how clear they are? I bet you there's no lights around.
You think that's AI generated, or you think that's real?
100% AI generated.
Looks cool. Yeah. Anyway.
Don't worship AI.
So this is in New Mexico. So we're talking about in America, in the Americas. And what they found here, go to the next tab here, is the coolest thing ever. They found these.
Oh, that's
Go
crazy.
away, Maria. They found these. Oh my gosh, these fossilized footprints, obviously human footprints, and they went ahead and dated them. And the cool thing about this is they were dated to around 23,000 years old. And why that is impactful is because we traditionally think that people didn't come to the Americas until about 13,000 years ago.
Yep.
So now we have evidence, clear evidence by these fossilized footprints that, yes, we did. We were here 23,000 years ago. And so that brings up the question of like, what kind of society was it and what were they capable of and why didn't we know about them? Like, there's a lot more for us to learn, right? The other really cool thing that I don't think is in these pictures is there are footprints. Like there's
Footprints in the sand.
yeah, there are. Yeah. But there's, so all the sand starts like wearing away over time. And this is why we're discovering this. But there are footprints and there's layers. Like there's footprints at this layer. There's footprints here. There's footprints here. So we don't know. Like it could go even deeper than we know. Mm-hmm. But the cool thing about it is there's on the layers that have the human footprints, there's also footprints of mammoths, giant sloths. Like we lived together. We coexisted with these animals. And I think that really gives us kind of like an idea that these humans must have been a little bit more advanced than we think they were. They're not just hunter-gatherers. Like if they're living and you see the footprints and you can see the way that Graham describes it, you can see there's the interaction between the animal and the human. And like, that's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so the other thing about this is that if you talk about 23,000 years ago, this predates the Ice Age. So we're really challenging the traditional notion that people came to the Americas 13,000 years ago. And it also kind of tells us that if we believe in this Younger Dryas theory, 12,900 to 11,600 years ago, then these humans were around for that. And that actually kind of makes sense to me because if you look across all the cultures, and all the different religions, pretty much every single one of them has a story of a great flood.
Yeah.
Right?
Everywhere.
And so that's where we're getting into now.
Right.
And I thought that was really interesting. I was like, so if they were here, maybe they were more advanced, and maybe there are some people that actually made it through, and that's how they preserved that memory of the Great Flood and what happened back then. And you see these architectural drawings and things, and we'll get into it a little bit. So that's White Sands. I thought that was unbelievable. And then there's also Gobekli Tepe, which I know a lot more people have heard about. Gobekli Tepe is in Turkey, and this is a recent discovery by archaeology, I think in the past 10 years maybe or so, or 15. I should probably get that right at some point, but you can look it up. Okay. It's on Google. But it's very recent, and so they discovered this this place where there are just these megalithic structures and these different pieces of art, and they dated it back to 11,600 years ago. And so just take a look at the size of this thing. Like I pulled this up, I found this picture. These are some of the like T-shaped pillars. There's a bunch of them. They're about 18 feet tall. And
you must have felt good when you saw that.
They can weigh up to several tons.
T for ton.
T for ton, baby. But like, think about if we were just like hunter-gatherers back then and not even really starting to understand how to create these things, how in the world were these created? With not only are they really heavy and really, really tall, they have these inscriptions that are beautiful. They have art to them. And there's more in this one here. This is talking a little bit about the story of Noah potentially being transcribed on this art, because there's a lot of different animals and things that, and the really crazy part that I didn't even expect to fall onto is that there's this great flood, right? So the theory here is that Graham Hancock thinks that this cataclysmic event caused this like huge flood, and that is seen across cultures and religions that speak about this great flood. And so that immediately, when I hear this, like I think about Noah, right?
Mm-hmm.
The story of Noah and the great flood. And I was like, well, maybe this time period is when it happened. Like, why wouldn't this like it align? And we have archaeological evidence across the Bible that has been proven true. So this might just be another piece to that puzzle. And so a cool thing about Gobekli Tepe in Turkey is that it's actually in proximity to Mount Ararat, which is where the Bible places Noah's Ark. And we're talking 500 kilometers, which is like 300 miles away.
Right.
That's pretty.
For a ship, yeah.
That's pretty crazy. And
Yeah.
then there's some ideas, like this is obviously all speculation here, but there's some ideas that some of the artwork here reflects the different types of animals that were on the ship, there's a bunch of other things in here. But you can see, like, look at how amazing this art is for back then.
I feel like if you were Noah and his family, like before that, tradition was always shared orally. Like you would just tell stories.
Yep.
I feel like you would want to
memorialize it somewhere.
Yeah, you would want to put that there because you would, after a cataclysmic event, if you survived it, you would know now, oh my God, if another one happens, like, and maybe a few people survive, just in case they didn't learn, they'll be able to find this. You would think ahead, I feel like.
Yeah.
You'd start to think of the future and like what you're leaving behind. So it makes sense. It makes sense that they would have inscribed things on
to kind of keep that history and keep I think oral tradition only goes so far, and obviously if you know that the flood wipes out a ton of people at that point, you're like, whoa, we need to write this down in some capacity. Like, that would be a logical next step.
Did you ever look into how they found the historical site of Sodom and Gomorrah?
No, I haven't. No.
So that's an interesting one to look into. So they went into the account of how Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed, and they found in that similar region, I don't know exactly where it's at, they found a ridiculously weird amount of sulfur, and like glass formed in the middle of the desert. It's mind blowing. And they were just like digging up, and they're like, this shouldn't be here.
Interesting.
And they were saying like that is the site of Sodom and Gomorrah, which makes sense. Like all of these stories are.
Can you give a little background on Sodom and Gomorrah for people that don't know?
Of course. So Abraham had a nephew who traveled with him when he was told by God that he's going to basically be the leader of all these nations. God tells him he's going to have this land, and then his nephew Lot goes and lives among the people in Sodom and Gomorrah, and God didn't really like that, but he lives kind of on the outskirts of the town.
It was a sinful city.
It's a very sinful city.
Yeah.
Everything bad was going on there. Yeah. It was a lot of
pagans.
Yeah, they were just worshiping. There's a lot of sexual immorality, all kinds of weird stuff. And so one day, Abraham's told from God that this city's going to be destroyed, and I'm just going to level it all. And Abraham's like, no, like Lot's there, like his family's there. Yeah. And so he's like, if there is 50 righteous people, will you destroy it? And he says, no. All right, well, if there's 45, and he just keeps going, eventually gets down to like 10 or whatever.
Well, look at that. Not to interrupt your story, but I didn't know they found like actual skeletons. That's pretty crazy.
I'm sure there would be.
Okay.
It makes sense. So fire and brimstone rains down, right? But basically, angels of the Lord appear to Lot's family. Lot welcomes them in, says, you should stay the night. They were basically going to go in and destroy the city, right? And they stay the night, and meanwhile, all the people from the city surround the building, and they're like saying, "Oh, bring these guys out here, whatever." Like, and Lot was like, "No, take our daughters instead. Leave these men alone, whatever." It's like incredible, like how they were. But basically, the angels tell him, "You guys are gonna have to run away." God tells them, "You guys have to leave and don't turn around. Like, just run." And they told people. They basically went around and told people, and people just laughed at them. They didn't believe them. Then when all hell broke loose on Sodom and Gomorrah, and they were running away, Lot and his family were running away, and the wife turned to take a glance back and turned to sand. And that's the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. But basically, God like leveled it because of how sinful they were. And
Seems like something we're going through right now, but we'll get into that a little bit. So my theory, I want to get back to Gobekli Tepe and basically just the thoughts that came to me while I was watching Ancient Apocalypse and tying it back to this great flood and like thinking back, like could there have been an ancient advanced civilization? I think so.
100%.
I think wholeheartedly that could be possible. And it seems like these structures and the sophistication between different roadways and things that we just like, we're finding it everywhere. The Amazon is completely, oh my gosh, there's so much there that's covered by the canopy of the Amazon that we don't even know about, but LiDAR is showing us.
And they've got 2-day shipping.
Shout out Amazon. But
Product sponsor for this video.
There's so much in so many different areas that is undiscovered, and I think America actually has more than we think we do. And that's one of the things that Graham Hancock is going after. But my theory is, yes, there was an ancient advanced civilization, and yes,
not just one.
Yeah,
many.
The thought is like the thing that comes to mind is like how did humans attain this knowledge to build this stuff?
Yep.
Or did they? And I think back to the Bible and the stories of the fallen angels and the Nephilim. And it's not only the Bible, we're talking the book of Enoch, we're talking about other places of scripture.
Canonized text talks about giants, talks about David and Goliath. Like it talks about these examples of things that we can't fathom today.
So like, is it that outrageous for someone to think that this couldn't have been done by like a giant or someone that like a Nephilim? So I want to talk about the Nephilim for a minute. What we know about them from scripture is that there's a couple different places. So Genesis 6 verses 1 through 4, and I'll just read it and you guys can look at it on the screen. But it says, when human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God, fallen angels, saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. And then I'll just skip down to verse 4 here. The Nephilim were on earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of the humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. And so there's a couple things here that I took from this when I was looking at it. Number one was that I was looking it up, and that there's some idea that these Nephilim were obviously from divine nature because they're made from humans and fallen angels mating, right? And so they may have introduced some kind of knowledge or skills that we would have otherwise not had. So we think about like all these sites and like the way that they're constructed is really aligned with different astronomy and things like that. And like the movements of the sun, the equinoxes, and all of that is unbelievable.
Are we going to get into the watchers and like the people holding the little bags and the
let's
images?
Talk about it.
Like
you probably know more than I do on that.
I'm super into that whole thing. Basically, in the Mayan ruins.
It's everywhere.
Mayan ruins, which doesn't make sense. The Egyptians have pictures and drawings of these beings, which you should look up that if you can.
Well, I mean, like there even here, I'm pretty sure there's pictures in Gobekli Tepe of these.
And they were like coming out of the water. They had like a fish head, was their description of it, which who knows what it actually would have been, and it could be symbolism or something like that. But they're these huge beings, and they came to teach. That's literally what every society said. And so like that could,
like this.
Yeah, it's just.
But it's also like in different. It doesn't always look exactly like that, but look at this. Yeah, we're talking across like places. Here's one. Where is this from? This is Gobekli Tepe, like I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You got the bags up here. Like, how at that day and age did they all, where they can't travel to each other, at least we think, how did they all
if they're
have similar imagery?
If they're fallen angels,
and I think that's the key.
They can do whatever they want.
Right.
Kind of, not really.
And that's why I think this theory, obviously this is just a theory and it's just like my thoughts, but I think it makes sense. And if everything else in the Bible seems to me like there's archaeology that keeps coming up and like proving is correct, why would this not, the story of Noah and the great flood and the Nephilim, why would that not be correct? And like, so I'm trying to understand it from that light. And so you've got the Nephilim. They were heroes of old and men of renown, which kind of talks about them having great feats and abilities and knowledge. And so there's two pathways for me. It's like either they taught the humans, and that's possible, or they could have done both of these things. They taught the humans, or they also helped the humans and actually created these structures, because in Numbers, the other scripture I wanted to talk about here, in Numbers chapter 13, verse 32 through 33, it talks about, and they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw Nephilim there. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. So it's speaking of their size. So we know that they're intelligent. They've got all this worldly knowledge. Mm-hmm. They're giants. And so like all these structures that we thought humans couldn't complete back then, 23,000 plus years ago, this kind of seems to make sense. No one's talking
makes
about
more sense
it. Graham,
than
listen
machines
to me.
And stuff like that, right? And it's so there's a theory. I forgot where I heard this, but there's a theory that, okay, so these fallen take these human women as wives. And it's kind of a silly theory, but it's like based on like the nature, right? Because they've taken these women as wives, your wife has a certain amount of strength and power over you, and they can kind of convince you of things. And so
some men more than others.
And so the theory is that basically these wives were watching these Nephilim and their children are Nephilim walking to earth and doing all this stuff, and they were kind of like oppressing humans, right? And so they were like begging and like almost like annoying them, and they're like, hey, like, we're your wives, like teach some people some stuff, like teach them some things. I forget where this comes from, but it comes from like a reading of I'm pretty sure like on one of these inscriptions, basically saying like they begged them to teach people how to do a lot of this stuff, and that's kind of how astronomy came out, and astrology, not astronomy, but I guess astronomy too. But all these different things, math and sciences and all these things, like kind of all the timing of it was quite interesting.
Yeah, man, I probably could find it, but it's going to take me a minute. So I guess if people can look it up if they want to.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's just the whole idea of this is interesting, and it makes sense when then you think about it. So like there was an ancient civilization, they were advanced, they were creating these structures, they understood astronomy, they understood all these different sciences. What's up, Sky? And
don't share our secrets.
And then there was so much wickedness around the world that is why God put it in Noah's heart to create this ark, bring all these animals. Then we have this great flood. Great flood wipes out all of this wickedness and all this information along with it. And so then we kind of have to start over. But we preserve some of those memories through these ancient oral traditions that talk about this great flood and the things that came before it. And so, I just think it's like super interesting. And I thought like I started having a conversation with ChatGPT while I was watching this. And the conversation was like, all right, so like, tell me more about the Younger Dryas period. I didn't know as much, and I wanted to kind of research it a little bit. And then I started questioning ChatGPT. I was like, okay, so if we know that this is possibly archaeological evidence that could potentially point to like the story of the Great Flood and Noah's Ark, what other archaeology is out there that's been proven that is in the Bible? And I mean, it went off and listed, I just want to mention a few of these. It was a long list of things. So there's cities and structures. We have Jericho. That's one of them. David's Jerusalem has also been discovered. Recent findings have found like fortifications and large buildings around the city of David area. Solomon's Temple. There's no direct archaeological evidence that the first temple was built by Solomon, but it has been uncovered, it looks like.
I'm sure if we dug underneath some of these structures, we'd see, but We really can't without disturbing it, you know?
Yeah. So there's a plethora of archaeological evidence. There's inscriptions and texts that we have. There are artifacts related to kings and prophets. I mean, then there's like the tablets, and there's the inscription of Pontius Pilate during that time. Like we know that there's like evidence pointing to the truth of what was written in the Bible.
You know what I want to do is, like, if I can retire at a good enough age, like, I would want to do that form of archaeology, but I've also like looked into this, and it's very difficult to get any like approval to go and do anything in those areas. They just will not let people. And it's to me, that's a little suspicious. Like, why aren't we allowed to?
Why are they pushing back so hard about like a different theory? Graham gets like hit up so much and gets so much pushback from the archaeologists.
Have you seen like what the Egyptian government does when you try to snoop around the pyramids? Like, they don't let you look at anything. And I understand, preserving things, but people who are going in with the intent of preservation but trying to understand, why are you shutting those people down? Like, reputable people. It's weird.
There's like there's a little bit of like explanation that I can sort of understand of like, there are some places where they know that we don't have the technology right now to date things or understand things. And so they basically refuse to excavate them, because once you excavate, you introduce contaminants and things that could break things down. And so they say like, let's wait another 50 years until we have the technology. So I kind of get that part, but like at the same time, there's too much pushback. Like it's like history is meant to be rewritten. Like we don't know everything. We haven't explored everything. We have no idea what's on the bottom of the ocean. Mm-hmm. And like for us to go around and say like, no, this is exactly what happened. Humans are this many years old. This is when we started. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, we need to be open to other ideas. And just because Graham Hancock isn't an archaeologist doesn't mean he doesn't have good theories. And if he's wrong, then he's wrong. Let's explore it and we'll find out.
Yeah, it's silly to think that because he's not an archaeologist, he can't think.
It's crazy. It's the same thing in science. Like, I mean,
argument from authority is a logical fallacy. We've proven this with all different types of arguments, and it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's the same argument as saying people from the past are not as smart as today. Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Just they had the same capacity for knowledge. Like, maybe they weren't as smart in certain capacities. Like, maybe there were plenty of people walking around who were foolish, but like, there were plenty of people who were very wise that walked the earth, and they were usually like kings and rulers and stuff. So
there's also like tremendous value in opposing opinions. Like, if they're wrong, you're going to prove them wrong. Exactly. Like, what are you so worried about? Why do you need to hang on to it?
I think that's the real missing thread of this whole situation is when you know your idea is really bad, you shut down arguments against it. Yeah. So like, when you know what you're saying is hanging on a thin veil, like, you're just
that scares me about like today's world, like where we're openly talking about like, oh, we need to censor hate speech, or we need to censor people if they disagree with this. Like, that is not okay. Like, this is it's a fundamental thing for us to have free speech, and there's a reason that we have it in the United States. And it's like, it's such a simple thing to me, and maybe other people don't understand it the same way I do, but like, if you have someone who has an opposing opinion, if they're wrong, they're wrong. The truth is going to prevail.
Yeah.
So like, why does it bother you that they have an opposing? I don't care if you disagree with me. Right. Disagree with me. If I'm right, I'm going to be right. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Big deal. Like, we should all be doing that and learning from it. So anyway, I did want to talk about where this kind of started leading me to, and that was the idea of like, where are we in the prophecies that are from within the Bible? And this is a topic that a lot of people are talking about nowadays. Are we in the end times? Like, where are we in Revelation? Which it feels like we potentially are in the end times. And you
and I are on the same page on this.
Yeah. I don't, like, obviously this is speculation, and we don't know the time. We don't know the time of when, Jesus will return. We have no idea, but I feel like there will be signs, and it feels like there's a lot of signs right now.
I think and I could be wrong on this. Yeah, pretty much anything we say here is just going to be, I could be wrong on this.
Yeah, let's set that precedent first.
But I think we haven't experienced a long period of prosperity where everybody worships God like it talks about.
Yeah.
And like, I think you have to have that in order for Christ to come. And I don't
think we're getting there though.
That's the feeling. My intuition's telling me that, like, my gut tells me that we are getting to a point, like your Brandon Lake concert. That's a small microcosm for how many people are waking up to this. The people that are having psychedelic experiences that are bringing them to God. It's like all these different things like that you wouldn't think are going to happen are happening. And it's all pointing to discovery of God. Muslims converting, like seeing visions of Jesus and converting.
But think about it, and it makes sense, right? So we have, like, in Scripture, it tells us all the different things that are going to be happening at the end of times. Yeah. We have natural disasters. I mean, look around. So Luke 21:25 through 26 says, it describes signs in the moon, the sun, and the stars, and nations in anguish due to the roaring of the sea. We're seeing these hurricanes that are unprecedentedly bigger than we've ever seen before. There's earthquakes all over the place. There's floods in the world. There's water where there wasn't water.
The best part is
before.
They can't explain the weather events
at all.
Like,
they're
none
like,
of
this
the
is
experts.
Bizarre. Yeah, the
they're all
meteorologists
saying
are like crying on TV. Like,
yeah.
We have no idea how this is happening. This is bizarre.
That should be an answer for a lot of you out
okay,
there.
That makes that sign a little bit higher,
ding,
in my
ding.
opinion. So these are like these birthing pains that Jesus spoke about, right? So that is the precursor to him coming back. We still don't know the time. There's wars, geopolitical tensions. You've got Israel surrounded right now. Yep. There's a lot of nations against Israel right now. Maybe it's not to the full extent of what was described in the Bible, but it seems like we're getting there if we're not there already.
We'll know for sure very soon.
Yep. So Zechariah talks about that, the nations against Israel. Like you were talking about earlier today, the technological advances and their potential for control. Revelation chapter 13, 16 through 17 talks about a world where no one can buy or sell without a mark. If you kind of interpret that as like the technological advancements in AI of like knowing exactly what we're doing at all times, there's something there.
Yeah. That one's a tricky one. The mark of the beast is a very, very, very tricky one.
Yeah.
Because like we should definitely.
I don't know that it has to be taken literally. I think that's
because some people were like, okay, it's gonna be a tattoo. Like,
well,
some people got those microchips in their hands, right? And they were using that to literally pay for stuff. Like,
did people do that?
People did it. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm looking this up.
Yeah,
really?
Look it up. I saw a video. The microchip in the hand thing for payment is a thing, and they're doing that a lot in Asia.
Get out of town. You can now get a payment chip implanted into your hand for $200. Polish, come on, Poland, what's going on? Polish-British company is offering, guys, this is the wrong thing. Don't do that. Oh, that's weird. Okay, go on.
But yeah, so it's scary what's happening, but also the we don't know what the mark's going to look like. It does say, whether this is metaphorical or not, I don't know, but it does say that, it'll be, I believe it's the right hand and the forehead or something like that. It's two areas that you're going to receive the mark on. And I feel like it's definitely more metaphorical, like saying like you're going to be choosing to turn from God.
Yeah. Stay strong.
Because think like how many times the Old Testament, even the New Testament, but Old Testament talks a lot about like the right hand of the Father. He grabs you by the right hand and all this stuff. It's like there's symbolism there.
Then there's also the other signs, which one of them is moral and spiritual decline. Like, does anyone disagree that the world, at least in the United States and the rest of the world, is very similar to what we're experiencing?
We have a city in this country called Sin City. Yeah. Let's be honest here.
So the ancient world before the flood was also described as corrupt and full of violence. And that was in Genesis. But similarly, the New Testament warns us that the last days will be marked with widespread immorality and departure from faith. I think we're seeing that. We're seeing evidence of that decline. We're seeing ethical confusion. We're seeing widespread, like everyone is about materialism. We're seeing this new wokeness and things like that are coming up and becoming like this idolized religion almost.
It is.
And it's like, it's just weird. Like we used
you
to
always
be a
believe
nation
in
under
something.
God. Yeah, always.
You can't believe in nothing. There's no such thing as a human being. Like, you always are believing in something. You believe you're going to wake up. That's one of your beliefs. Like if you didn't, you would never fall asleep. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there is some semblance of submission, and that indicates that you believe in it. So yeah, I don't. There is no such thing as atheism. You heard it here first. There's no such thing as
It's a
atheism.
very definitive statement.
Yeah.
I bet the atheists would disagree.
Well, actually, I guess atheism is a religion is what I meant to say. But
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a belief there. Yeah.
still. But you're making something your God either way.
Yeah. So I think, all these things are that we're seeing in the world today. Like even looking back at this past year where we had the eclipse that crossed over and made the Hebrew symbol for Alpha and Omega over the United States, and it went over some really obviously these are all conspiracies and we don't know what they mean, but it went over some interesting named cities that are biblical, and so we have the second moon that apparently is showing up somehow. We have these weird things that are going on, and it just makes me think, and then really it's mostly what's going on in the world with the wars, the loss of our morals and our grounding to truth and all of that. And now what I want to contrast that with is what you were saying before, is this coming back of this faith where I feel I don't know, maybe it's just me and what I'm inundated with because of the algorithm, but yeah. For me, it feels like the world is coming back to God. We've swung so far this pendulum the wrong way that now we're swinging back, and I'm seeing people just praising God and living out their truths in the Bible. Young kids all over TikTok and YouTube talking about and preaching, evangelizing. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah. I don't know why this is coming to me right now, but I remember last night, I was actually going to tell you about this morning. Remember I was telling you when I was meditating, I was seeing things?
Yeah.
Some of it was Hebrew text and everything.
Yep.
You know what I saw last night when I was meditating? Vividly. I looked at it and it didn't disappear. Because I told you, it would disappear. It was the number 7.
Interesting.
And there was nothing. I wasn't priming my brain to do that or anything. It just appeared out of nowhere. And I thought it was kind of interesting because I was also really trying to just not go into that meditation with any intention. We're just talking about that number 7, and that's God to me. That's God communicating with us in some shape or form.
That's very cool. Yeah, so I think obviously we're talking about the end times, and we feel I don't know. I think it's kind of internal too. I kind of feel something's happening,
mm-hmm.
and I just want to also recognize that this isn't something that we should be scared of. I think it's important for us to recognize it. I think that this election that's coming up in the next few weeks may be something that we should pay attention to, obviously. And as Christians, we may see that the results of this election don't go the way that we think that they're going to go, but that's all part of God's plan, right? So
mm-hmm.
Don't lose hope and stay strong in your faith. And know that all of this is leading to the return of Christ, which is ultimately what we all hope for. And
the phrase that's repeated more times than anywhere in the Bible is "Do not be afraid."
Do not be afraid. Yeah.
And if you're like me and you're wondering why, how do you lose that fear? How do you do all these things? Literally go and read the Word. I don't know why, but that book, no matter how you're reading it on a phone, physical form, hearing it spoken, no matter what, that book is powerful.
Yeah.
The words in there are powerful.
Yeah. I mean, whether we're living through the end times or just literally witnessing just another chapter of humanity and the waxing and waning of how things happen in the world, either which way, I think we can take a bit of experience from Noah and just remain steadfast in God's mission and his love for us, and understand that everything will work out in the end, and whatever happens, we don't have to worry about it. We should be cognizant of it. We should be paying attention to it, and we should always just be ready for when Christ will return, and just try and do your best to be a good person, love other people, have good conversations.
I heard when you're trying to think of the way that we should be in this world, if you want to sum it down to something simple, It's like you got God and you got Satan. God is active. Satan is reactive. He always like tries to do the same kind of thing.
Yep.
And so like when things happen, rather than being reactive, you should be more like God and actively, consciously choose in the way that you are going to deal with that situation. I don't know why that just like really hit me. Like when I heard it somewhere, it was active versus reactive. It's two very different things.
Yeah.
Reactive is never the way. Like that's where anger comes out and all these nasty emotions that like don't need to come to the surface.
Yeah, that's well put. It's well put. Well, we talked about a lot today.
Yeah.
Anything else on your mind that you wanted to chat about?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm about to undergo a fun experience.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. We're gonna do your first. Sure. We're doing your first guided psilocybin experience.
Yep.
You've never done this before, correct?
Nope.
Okay. And so the plan is that it'll be, we'll start slow. We're going to go through a whole guided experience. We'll make sure that we have the intentions set ahead of time and everything. And from there, we will see what happens. And we can talk about it, I think, on the next episode and see how things went for you.
Everybody's like, oh, something happened.
He's not here next episode. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We should mess with them.
Just walk in at the end,
yeah.
or towards the end. Anyway, all right, let's wrap it up then.
Yeah.
Let's get started with the rest of the day here. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I think it was really interesting. I hope you guys thought so too. And let us know what you think of what we're talking about and how the podcast is going, and give us feedback and any criticisms, or if you like it, let us know you like it.
Like it, comment, subscribe, do all the things, share it.
Yep.
Get out there. We're on Spotify too. If you're not, if you want to just listen to us on Spotify, you can listen to us on Spotify there, and otherwise watch it on YouTube.
Exactly. Thanks, guys. We love you. God bless, and have a wonderful rest of your week.